Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're diving into 5 real-life true crime cases, each grabbing the attention of the public and media. While investigating these 5 cases, detectives faced challenges. However, evidence, witness statements, and in some cases, surveillance footage ultimately helped uncover the truth. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're diving into a chilling case from the sun-soaked Greek island of Kos, where a dream vacation turned into a nightmare. This is the story of Anastasia Patricia Rubinska, a 27-year-old Polish woman whose life was tragically cut short in the summer of 2023. It was June 12, 2023, on the island of Kos, a place known for its turquoise waters, ancient ruins, and vibrant nightlife. Tourists flocked to its sandy beaches, and the town of Marmari, where Anastasia worked, buzzed with the energy of summer. Anastasia Patricia Rubinska, a lively young woman from Wrocław, Poland, had come to Kos to work as a waitress at a luxurious 5-star hotel. She was no stranger to the tourism industry, having moved to the island just a month earlier with her boyfriend, chasing the promise of a summer filled with adventure and opportunity. Anastasia was described by those who knew her as vibrant, ambitious, and full of dreams. She loved to travel and had her sights set on a future in modeling. But on that fateful Monday evening, something went terribly wrong. Anastasia had spent the day off from her job at the hotel's restaurant. She decided to unwind at a local party, soaking in the island's festive atmosphere. That evening, she did not return home, and her boyfriend reported her missing to the police. To unravel the mystery of what happened that June night in 2023, we need to step back and explore the world of this 27-year-old Polish woman whose dreams brought her to a faraway island, only for tragedy to strike. Anastasia Patricia Rubinska was born in 1996 in Wrocław, a vibrant city in southwestern Poland, known for its colorful architecture and bustling student life. After finishing school, she threw herself into the hospitality industry, taking jobs that allowed her to travel and meet people from all walks of life. Her work as a waitress wasn't just a job, it was a way to fund her dreams of seeing the world and, eventually, breaking into modeling, a goal she pursued with quiet confidence. By the time she was 27, Anastasia had been in a committed relationship for over a decade. She and her boyfriend, Michał, a fellow Pole, had built a life together, sharing a love for adventure that led them to the Greek island of Kos in May 2023. The couple had moved there for the summer season, drawn by the promise of steady work in the island's thriving tourism industry. Anastasia landed a position at a 5-star hotel in Marmari, a picturesque coastal town where the days were filled with the hum of vacationers and the nights pulsed with energy. She worked in the hotel's restaurant, serving guests with her trademark smile, while Michał took on a similar role nearby. Their plan was simple: work hard, save money, and make memories in a place that felt like paradise. Anastasia's family back in Wrocław remained a cornerstone of her life. She was particularly close to her brother, Adrian, who often spoke of her ambition and zest for life. Despite the distance, she stayed in touch with her loved ones, sharing stories of her time on Kos through calls and social media. Her Instagram was a vibrant collage of beach sunsets, local festivals, and moments with Michał, painting the picture of a woman embracing every opportunity. Those who worked with her at the hotel noted her professionalism and warmth, qualities that made her a favorite among colleagues and guests alike. To understand what happened, we need to retrace Anastasia's steps, hour by hour, through the vibrant streets of Marmari, where a seemingly carefree night spiraled into darkness. It was a Monday, and Anastasia had the day off. The summer season was in full swing, and Kos was alive with tourists and locals enjoying the warm evenings. For Anastasia, it was a chance to let loose after weeks of hard work. She decided to spend her evening at a local party, a common way to unwind on the island. The gathering was in Marmari, not far from the hotel where she and her boyfriend Mihail worked. These parties were typical for seasonal workers, lively affairs with music, drinks, and a mix of familiar faces and strangers drawn together by the island's festive atmosphere. By around 8 p.m., Anastasia was at a local cafe, a popular spot where hotel staff and visitors mingled. Surveillance footage from the cafe captured her there, dressed in a pink floral dress, blue sunglasses perched on her head, and carrying a silver backpack, items that would later become key details in the search. She appeared relaxed, enjoying the evening, but as the hours passed, she had been drinking, perhaps more than she intended. Around 10:30 p.m., she made a call to Mihail, who was working a shift at the hotel. Her voice carried a mix of lightheartedness and unease. She told him she'd had too much to drink and felt out of place at the party. She mentioned she was arranging a ride on a motorbike to meet him, sharing her location so he could pick her up. It was a brief conversation, but one that would later weigh heavily on Mihail. Minutes later, Anastasia sent Mihail a text message that raised alarm bells. She wrote that she felt uncomfortable at the gathering, hinting that something wasn't quite right. But shortly after, another message followed, assuring him she was fine and on her way. This second text struck investigators as odd. Its tone seemed inconsistent with the first, almost as if it was sent under duress or by someone else. Mihail, concerned but trusting her plan, headed to the location she'd shared, a spot in Marmari where they were supposed to meet. When he arrived, Anastasia was nowhere to be found. He tried calling her repeatedly, but her phone was switched off, an unusual occurrence for someone as connected as Anastasia. Using a tracking app, Mihail located her phone at 11:38 p.m. on Konstantino Kiapoka Street in Tigaki, a quiet area about 5.5 kilometers from Marmari. But when he reached the spot, there was no sign of her, and her phone remained unresponsive. By the early hours of June 13th, with no sign of Anastasia and no response from her phone, Mihail knew he couldn't wait any longer. He contacted the Kos police, reporting her missing and providing every detail he could. Her last call, the texts, the motorbike ride, and the phone's final location. The police took the report seriously, noting that Anastasia hadn't shown up for her shift at the hotel that morning, a break from her usual punctuality. They began organizing a search, pulling in officers, volunteers, and even a drone to scan the island's terrain. The missing alert issued by The Smile of the Child described Anastasia in detail. 1.65 meters tall, blonde hair, brown eyes, last seen in a pink floral dress, and urged anyone with information to come forward. 5 days have passed. The investigation was about to take a darker turn, as clues from surveillance footage, witness interviews, and a meticulous search of the island began to point toward a troubling truth. Drones buzzed over the island's rugged terrain, scanning the beaches, wetlands, and olive groves around Marmari and Tigaki. Divers plunged into the clear waters near the shore, while search teams, including Anastasia's family and private detectives hired by her mother, combed the Alaik's Tigaki wetlands where her phone's last signal had been traced. The area, a marshy expanse dotted with reeds and salt flats, was difficult to navigate, but it became a focal point after a passerby discovered Anastasia's phone on June 17th, discarded on a remote road near an uninhabited building. The phone, missing its SIM card, was sent to the Hellenic Police's forensic labs for analysis, but its discovery only deepened the mystery. Why was the SIM card removed, and who had left the phone there? By this time, the police already had a prime suspect, whom they questioned the day after Anastasia's disappearance. Investigators turned to the surveillance footage from the mini-market in Marmari, which had captured Anastasia leaving with a 32-year-old Bangladeshi man on June 12. The footage was grainy, but clear enough to show them heading toward a motorbike, with Anastasia climbing on behind him. This man, a seasonal worker on a local farm, became a person of interest. The police interviewed dozens of witnesses to build a clearer picture of Anastasia's final hours. Hotel staff described her as reliable and well-liked, with no known conflicts at work. Guests at the party recalled seeing her dancing and chatting, but none reported anything unusual until later in the evening, when she appeared unsteady from drinking. One witness, a fellow seasonal worker, mentioned seeing her talking to a man near the cafe's entrance around 8:30 p.m., though they couldn't confirm his identity. Mihail was questioned again, this time about the texts Anastasia sent him. He explained that the first message, expressing discomfort, felt genuine, but the second, claiming she was fine, seemed out of character. The police began to suspect the second text might have been sent under coercion or by someone else. The investigation zeroed in on the Bangladeshi man seen with Anastasia. Police visited his residence, a modest house near Marmari, shared with his Pakistani roommate. A search of the property yielded critical evidence: strands of blonde hair, a yellow sweater with stains, and a plane ticket to Italy purchased for June 13th, the day after Anastasia's disappearance. The man had scratch marks on his face and hands, which he attributed to his farm work, claiming they were from thorns. However, police noted that his clothes also had remnants of vegetation, possibly from the wetlands. The discovery of the plane ticket raised red flags. Why was he planning to leave Kos so soon after Anastasia vanished? His phone, seized during the search, revealed chilling search queries from that night, including how to confuse the police and how to remove fingerprints from a body. These findings painted a troubling picture, but the man's statements were inconsistent. He initially admitted to spending time with Anastasia at his home, claiming they had a consensual encounter before he dropped her off elsewhere. Later, he changed his story, saying that she had come to buy illegal substances and that he had not seen her after she left. The police weren't convinced. Additional surveillance footage from another camera showed the man and Anastasia on his motorbike, possibly leaving his house around 10:30 p.m. He returned alone at 1 a.m., retrieved garbage bags, and left again. This timeline suggested he might have returned to dispose of evidence. The police also explored the possibility that the crime occurred outside his home, perhaps in the countryside or an abandoned building near the wetlands. They revisited the Alikes area, which had been searched earlier without success. On June 18th, the search took a grim turn. In the Alikes Tigaki wetlands, about 1 kilometer from the man's residence and 500 meters from where her phone was found, volunteers discovered Anastasia's body. It was hidden under a tree, covered with branches, and wrapped in a sheet inside a plastic bag. The discovery sent shockwaves through Kos and beyond, confirming the worst fears of her family and the community. The police secured the scene, and the body was sent for an autopsy. The cause of death was strangulation, with marks around her neck indicating significant force was applied. The examination also revealed injuries consistent with a struggle, including bruises and abrasions on her arms and torso, suggesting she fought back against her attacker. In addition, evidence of sexual violence was confirmed. These findings painted a harrowing picture of her last hours. On June 19th, the Kos police arrested the man seen with Anastasia in the mini-market surveillance footage. The arrest followed days of intense questioning, prompted by the evidence found at his home: strands of blonde hair, a stained yellow sweater, a plane ticket to Italy, and incriminating phone searches about evading police detection. He was charged with intentional homicide, abduction, rape, and offenses related to illegal drug possession, as evidence suggested he had offered Anastasia hashish on the night of June 12th. The charges painted a grim picture, but the police needed his full account to understand what drove the events of that night. The suspect, identified as Salahuddin S., had lived on Kos for several years, working in agriculture to support himself. Originally from Bangladesh, he had come to Greece seeking better opportunities, like many seasonal workers on the island. He shared a modest house with a Pakistani roommate, another farm worker. Salahuddin was described by locals as quiet but sociable, often seen at community gatherings or local cafes. However, those who knew him noted he kept to himself about personal matters, and little was known about his life beyond his work. The police dug into his background, checking for prior criminal activity, but found no significant record in Greece or Bangladesh. Still, his behavior after Anastasia's disappearance, particularly the plane ticket and suspicious phone searches, suggested he was preparing to flee. During initial questioning, Salahuddin's statements were inconsistent, much like they had been before his arrest. He admitted to meeting Anastasia at the cafe on June 12, claiming she approached him to buy hashish. He said they went to his home, where they smoked together, and that she left afterward, unharmed. But this account didn't align with the surveillance footage showing him returning alone to his house at 1 a.m., retrieving garbage bags, and leaving again. When confronted with the evidence, particularly the DNA-matched hair and the stained sweater, he grew evasive, insisting the scratches on his face and hands were from farm work. He claimed the plane ticket was for a long-planned trip, unrelated to the case. As interrogations continued, Salahuddin offered a new version of events. He said Anastasia had become disoriented after smoking hashish and wandered off after he dropped her near Tigaki. He denied any physical altercation, but the autopsy's evidence of sexual assault and strangulation directly contradicted his story. The police pressed him on the garbage bags and the vegetation on his clothes, which matched samples from the wetlands. Faced with mounting evidence, Salahuddin's demeanor shifted, and he became less cooperative, refusing to answer questions about his phone searches, which included queries like how to dispose of evidence. Investigators suspected he was withholding critical details, possibly to protect himself. The motive for the crime remained unclear, as Salahuddin provided no coherent explanation. The police considered several possibilities based on the evidence. The offer of hashish suggested he may have lured Anastasia to his home under false pretenses, but whether the encounter escalated due to a personal dispute or an opportunistic act was uncertain. The abduction charge stemmed from the fact that Anastasia was taken to a location against her will, as her texts to Mihail indicated discomfort and a plan to meet him elsewhere. The intentional homicide charge was supported by the autopsy, which confirmed she was strangled, with injuries suggesting she fought back. The drug-related charges were tied to the hashish found at his residence, though this seemed secondary to the primary offenses. The police also revisited Salahuddin's roommate, whose vague initial statements had raised suspicions. He claimed to have been asleep when Anastasia was at the house, but his phone records showed late-night activity, prompting speculation about his involvement. However, no direct evidence linked him to the crime, and he was released after further questioning. As the case gained traction in the media, Anastasia's family demanded justice. Her brother Adrian, speaking to Greek City Times, said, "We want the truth, no matter how painful. She didn't deserve this." The charges against Salahuddin were a step toward accountability, but the investigation still faced gaps. Why had Anastasia gone with him that night? Was there more to their interaction than he admitted? The answers lay in the details he refused to share, leaving the police and Anastasia's loved ones grappling with a truth that was still out of reach. The trial of Salahuddin S. began in late 2024, with the Greek court in Kos taking up the case that had sparked outrage in both Poland and Greece. The prosecution built a compelling case, relying on DNA evidence, surveillance footage, and Salahuddin's suspicious actions. They argued that Salahuddin lured Anastasia to his home under the pretense of providing hashish, where an initial interaction occurred, before he took her on a motorbike to an outdoor location, likely near the Alaik's-Tigaki wetlands, where he raped and strangled her. Surveillance footage showed them leaving his residence together around 10:30 p.m., with Salaudin returning alone at 1 a.m. to retrieve garbage bags and a sheet, which were later used to conceal her body. They argued that Salaudin's actions after the crime, removing the SIM card from Anastasia's phone, purchasing a plane ticket to Italy, and hiding her body in a plastic bag covered with branches, demonstrated a calculated effort to evade justice. The defense, led by Salaudin's lawyer until his resignation, argued that the evidence was circumstantial and that Salaudin was not guilty of the charges. They contended that Anastasia's presence at his home was consensual, tied to a drug transaction, and that her death occurred elsewhere, possibly involving another party. The defense challenged the reliability of the surveillance footage, suggesting it was inconclusive about the exact sequence of events. They also questioned the DNA evidence, arguing that the presence of Anastasia's hair in the residence could be explained by her brief visit, not necessarily a crime. On December 6, 2024, a Greek court delivered a verdict, sentencing Salaudin to life in prison for the rape and murder of Anastasia. For Anastasia's family, the trial's outcome was bittersweet, a guilty verdict, but no amount of justice could bring her back. In the case of Salaudin, sentenced to life imprisonment in December 2024, he would likely be eligible for parole consideration after 18 years, around 2042, assuming no additional sentences or complicating factors. However, parole is discretionary, and given the severity of the crimes, approval is not guaranteed. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a case that reminds us how quickly light can turn to shadow. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'll keep bringing you the stories that matter, so stay with us for more true crime mysteries. Until next time, keep searching for the truth under the checkered sky.
You have 60 seconds to open this door before I kick it down. Open the door!
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're stepping into a case that shook a small town in Northamptonshire, UK. A story that's equal parts heartbreaking and haunting. This is the story of Marta Kamileka, a 31-year-old woman whose life ended far too soon, leaving a community grappling with questions and a family forever changed. Picture this: October 19, 2021, a crisp fall day in Kettering, a quiet market town in Northamptonshire. Wood Street, lined with modest homes and guest houses, hummed with the usual rhythm of daily life. Neighbors chatting, cars rolling by, kids heading home from school. But just after midday, that calm shattered. Northamptonshire police received a call about a welfare concern at a property on Wood Street. A family member hadn't heard from their loved one in days, and something felt off. Officers arrived, expecting maybe a routine check. Instead, they forced their way into a rented room and found a scene that would launch one of the town's most chilling crime investigations. Marta was dead. The room, small and cluttered, held secrets that would take months to unravel. What had happened here? And why had Marta, a woman described as exceptional by those who knew her, met such a tragic end? The police sealed off the street, and neighbors watched in stunned silence as forensic teams moved in. Detectives zeroed in on a critical window: the night of October 15th, 4 days before Marta's body was found. Neighbors like Andre Oliveira, who lived nearby, told reporters they'd never seen anything like this in Kettering. The police promised answers, but for now, all they had was a name: Marta Kamileka, and a mystery that was only beginning to take shape. In reconstructing the chronology of the last hours of Marta's life, investigators used surveillance footage that became an important piece of evidence in the case. So, who was she? Marta was a vibrant, kind, and independent woman whose life touched so many. Let's piece together her story, the one she was writing before it was cut short. Marta grew up in Bydgoszcz, a bustling city in northern Poland known for its riverside charm and tight-knit communities. Her family described her as exceptional, full of life, always smiling, and quick to lend a hand. Marta had a knack for making people feel seen, whether it was helping a neighbor with groceries or spending hours chatting with friends over coffee. Her brother and sister-in-law, who later spoke at her inquest, said she was the glue in their family, someone who never needed to be asked for help. She was just there, ready to step in. In Poland, Marta was close to her parents, especially her father. Friends called her a daddy's girl, not in a spoiled way, but because of the quiet, unshakable bond they shared. She'd call him just to talk about her day, and he'd listen, proud of the confident woman she was becoming. Marta also adored her brother's kids, her nieces, and took her role as their aunt seriously. She'd spoil them with little gifts, play games, or just sit with them, listening to their stories. Her family said she had a natural warmth, the kind that made everyone feel like they mattered. Marta was in her mid-20s, living in Poland, when she met Paweł Komilecki. Paweł, a few years older, was charming, confident, and had a passion for cars, especially BMWs, which he loved showing off. Marta was drawn to his energy. Friends later recalled that they seemed like a good match at first. Marta's outgoing nature complemented Paweł's more reserved demeanor. They bonded over shared interests, music, weekend trips, and dreams of a bigger life beyond Poland's borders. For Marta, who was always curious and ambitious, Paweł represented a partner who shared her desire to explore new horizons. Their relationship moved quickly. By 2016, after a couple of years together, they were ready to take the next step. On July 29, 2016, Marta and Paweł married in a small but joyful ceremony in Bydgoszcz. It was a day filled with family, laughter, and Polish traditions. Marta's family, especially her father, who adored her, was thrilled to see her happy. The couple settled into married life, renting a place in Bydgoszcz and building a routine. For a while, it looked like the life Marta had envisioned, stable, full of love, and pointed toward a bright future. But Marta and Paweł had bigger plans. Both wanted more than Bydgoszcz could offer, a chance to grow, earn better money, and experience a new culture. In 2017, they made a bold decision. They'd move to England. Kettering, a modest town in Northamptonshire, became their destination, partly because Marta's brother and his family had already settled there. The move was a leap of faith. They packed up their lives, said tearful goodbyes to their families, and arrived in the UK with high hopes. Kettering, with its quiet streets and close-knit Polish community, felt like a place where they could start fresh. They rented a place together, explored the town, and began carving out a new life. They enjoyed their new home with trips out, going for walks and visits to cafes and bars, a local news report later noted, capturing those hopeful days. At first, the move seemed to strengthen their bond. Marta threw herself into life in Kettering, finding work and making friends, while Paweł also settled into a job. They'd host dinners for Marta's brother and his kids, with Marta playing the doting aunt, always ready with a game or a treat. Social media posts from the time showed them smiling, arms around each other, with captions about new adventures. But behind those curated moments, cracks were forming. Paweł, who'd always been a bit possessive, started showing a controlling side that Marta hadn't seen as clearly in Poland. He'd question where she was going, who she was with, and why she was spending time with new friends. Marta, fiercely independent, didn't take well to being micromanaged. She wanted to live her life, not just exist in Paweł's shadow. As months turned into years, Paweł's jealousy grew. He wasn't just protective, he was obsessive. Marta's social circle in Kettering's Polish community was expanding, and she was thriving, meeting new people, and rediscovering her confidence. But Pavel couldn't handle it. He'd text her constantly, demanding to know her plans, and sometimes show up unannounced at places where she was hanging out. Friends noticed Marta seemed less herself around him. Her usual spark dimmed. She'd brush it off, saying Pavel was just stressed or adjusting to life in England, but those close to her saw the strain. Marta was always smiling, her family later said, but they admitted privately that she'd confided in them about Pavel's behavior, hinting at arguments that left her feeling trapped. The tension wasn't just emotional, it turned physical. Court records later revealed 3 documented incidents of Pavel's aggression toward Marta, one in August 2020, another at Easter 2021, and a third in September 2021, just weeks before the tragedy. These weren't isolated moments. They were part of a pattern. Marta, who'd always been strong-willed, started to fear the man she'd once loved. She'd tell friends she didn't recognize Pavel anymore, that his jealousy was suffocating her. Yet, she stayed, perhaps hoping things would improve or feeling the weight of their shared history. Pavel's controlling behavior extended beyond their home. He'd hassle Marta's friends, trying to track her movements, and even stalked her, showing up at her workplace or lingering outside places she frequented. By mid-2020, their marriage was unraveling. Marta moved out, finding her own place in Kettering, determined to rebuild her life. She was coming out of her shell, posting on social media about personal growth. Just 5 days before her life ended, she shared a photo with a caption in Polish. "One of the worst mistakes a person can make is wasting years of life waiting for another person to change or develop." It was a bold statement, a declaration of her intent to move forward. She was dating again, forming a new relationship with a work colleague, and planning a future that didn't include Pavel. But Pavel wasn't ready to let her go. He kept texting, calling, and trying to insert himself into her life, even as she distanced herself. Marta repeatedly messaged Pavel, begging him to leave her alone. The police, as they later investigated, found evidence of Pavel's relentless pursuit. He'd send messages that swung between pleading and threatening, refusing to accept that Marta was done. Her family, especially her brother and sister-in-law, noticed her growing unease. She'd visit them, still the loving aunt to their kids, but there was a heaviness in her eyes. She was trying to break free, but Pavel's shadow loomed large. As October 2021 approached, Marta was at a turning point. She was happier, planning a Christmas trip to Poland to see her father and talking about her dreams with friends. But Pavel's jealousy and control were escalating. The night of October 15th, when Marta was last seen alive, would reveal just how far he was willing to go to keep her in his grasp. What happened in those final moments? And how did a love that started with such promise lead to such darkness? That's what we're going to talk about next. Marta wasn't just leaving a marriage, she was breaking free from a cage. The breakup wasn't a single moment, but a series of deliberate steps. Marta began by distancing herself, limiting contact, and avoiding places where Pavel might show up. She confided in her brother and sister-in-law, who lived nearby, about her plans to divorce Pavel in Poland, where their marriage was registered. She'd already started gathering paperwork, a process that required coordination with lawyers back in Bydgoszcz. Marta also leaned on her friends in Kettering's Polish community, who rallied around her. They'd invite her to dinners, gym sessions, or nights out, helping her rediscover the joy Pavel had dimmed. But Pavel wasn't letting go. His jealousy, already a festering wound, turned into an obsession. Pavel Komilecki did not want to accept the end of his relationship with Marta, and remained in contact with her despite her attempts to distance herself from him, Detective Superintendent Joe Banfield later said. Pavel's actions grew more desperate. He'd call and text Marta relentlessly, sometimes begging for another chance, other times accusing her of betraying him. When she blocked his number, he'd use different phones or contact her friends, pressuring them for information about her plans. He'd show up at her favorite cafes or linger near her workplace, hoping to catch her off guard. Marta's friends noticed her growing unease. She'd glance over her shoulder when out, as if expecting Pavel to appear. Pavel's behavior crossed into stalking. He'd follow Marta from a distance, watching her movements, and once trailed her from her workplace to a friend's house, only leaving when her friend confronted him. Marta told her brother she felt trapped, like Pavel was everywhere. By October 2021, Marta was thriving despite Pavel's shadow. She was planning a Christmas trip to Poland to see her father, excited about her mother's visit to Kettering, and enjoying her new relationship. On Friday, October 15th, she spent the evening socializing with friends, laughing and texting as they shared drinks at a local spot. She left around 10:40 p.m., dressed sharply, her usual confident self. But that night, something went wrong. Marta didn't show up for work on Monday, October 18th, which was unlike her. Her colleagues, used to her punctuality, raised the alarm, and her brother grew worried when she didn't answer his calls. The final straw came when Marta's family received a text from her phone that didn't sound like her. It was oddly formal, lacking her usual warmth, as if someone else had written it. Her sister-in-law, sensing something was terribly wrong, suspected Pavel's involvement, given his history of controlling behavior. On Tuesday, October 19th, she went to Pavel's rented room on Wood Street. When no one answered the door, her fear intensified. She called 999, reporting her concerns for Marta's welfare and mentioning Pavel's past aggression. Northamptonshire police responded quickly, dispatching officers to the address for a welfare check. What they found was devastating. Officers forced their way into Pavel's room, breaking down the door. Inside, they discovered Marta's body, lifeless, wrapped in a blood-stained duvet. She'd suffered 32 sharp force injuries, including wounds to her neck, face, shoulders, and chest, with defensive wounds on her right hand showing she'd fought back. Beside her lay Pavel, bleeding heavily from up to 9 self-inflicted wounds to his throat.
You have 60 seconds to open this door before I kick it down. Open the door. Stay there. He's got a knife in his neck.
Police immediately secured the area, calling for paramedics. Marta was pronounced dead at the scene, her dreams of a new life extinguished. Pavel, still alive, was rushed to the hospital. On October 21st, after his injuries were confirmed as non-life-threatening, Pavel Komilecki was arrested in his hospital bed. Throughout our investigation, Komilecki refused to cooperate, Detective Superintendent Joe Banfield said, noting Pavel's initial refusal to admit his prior aggression toward Marta. When interviewed, Pavel stayed silent, offering no explanation for what happened in that room. Detectives pressed him about Marta's final days, her absence from work, and the suspicious text, but he gave them nothing. His silence only deepened the mystery. Why had Marta gone to his room that night? Had Pavel lured her there? And what had sparked such a tragic outcome? The police pieced together a timeline. Marta hadn't been seen since October 15th, and her body likely remained in Pavel's room for nearly 4 days. Pavel had stayed with her body, going about his routine as if nothing had happened. The text sent from Marta's phone was a critical clue, suggesting Pavel had tried to cover his tracks. Marta's family, especially her brother and sister-in-law, were shattered. They'd urged her to stay away from Pavel, but none could have predicted the extent of his desperation. Now, we're diving into the critical evidence that cracked this true crime case wide open. Security camera footage, Pavel's disturbing actions with Marta's phone, and the charges that followed. The investigation into Marta's death hinged on hard evidence, and nothing was more revealing than the security camera footage from Wood Street and nearby areas. Northamptonshire police scoured CCTV and Ring doorbell recordings, which painted a gruesome picture of Marta's last moments. On Friday, October 15th, 2021, Marta had spent the evening at her friend Daria's house in Woodlands Court, socializing and in high spirits. She was texting, laughing, and exchanging flirty messages with Alexandru, a work colleague she was dating. But she also responded to a few texts from Pavel, who was pressing her to come to his place, even asking her to bring a pizza. The day before, she'd snapped at him in a message and asked him to leave her alone. Yet Pavel was relentless, texting her and even contacting a mutual friend to check if Marta was at Daria's. When he learned she was, he saw his chance. At 10:42 p.m., Marta left Daria's, walking alone along Wood Street toward Rockingham Road. The footage showed her moving confidently, dressed for a night out, carrying a small bag. But minutes later, at around 10:45 p.m., cameras captured Pavel leaving his rented room and heading toward Bath Road, deliberately intercepting her path. Pavel Komilecki leaving his Wood Street address to find Marta, Northamptonshire police later noted, describing the footage. Near Wilson Terrace, the cameras recorded a struggle. Marta, initially walking normally, appeared to resist as Pavel grabbed her arm. She stumbled, collapsing briefly, and was seen coughing and unsteady on her feet. Ring doorbell audio picked up her labored coughs and Pavel's voice, cold and commanding. "Come on, not far now. Can you hear me?" He was seen frog-marching her, at one point holding her up in a bear hug as she struggled to walk. By 10:56 p.m., the grainy footage showed them entering his house, the last time Marta was seen alive by anyone but Pavel. Inside that room, the timeline grew murkier, but Pavel's actions with Marta's phone provided critical clues. Around 11:01 p.m., just 5 minutes after they entered, Pavel took a photo of Marta lying on the floor, though it's unclear if she was already injured. About 90 minutes later, at roughly 12:30 a.m. on October 16th, he photographed messages on her phone between her and Alexandru, confirming her new relationship. Pavel's obsession with Marta's new life, particularly her relationship with Alexandru, fueled his actions. He didn't stop at snooping. Pavel used Marta's phone to send messages, trying to cover his tracks. He texted her friends and family, mimicking her tone to make it seem she was still alive. One message, sent to her family, stood out as off, formal and unlike Marta's usual warm, casual style. These messages were part of Pavel's attempt to delay suspicion, buying him time as he stayed in the room with Marta's body for nearly 4 days. The next day, he sent messages from Marta's phone, pretending to be her, to male contacts trying to encourage them into sexual encounters. On October 17th, 2 days after Marta's death, cameras caught him casually walking to a local shop to buy 6 cans of beer and a soft drink, then returning to his room. He showed no outward signs of distress, blending into Kettering's daily rhythm, while Marta's body lay wrapped in a blood-stained duvet. This footage was damning. It showed a man not only capable of taking a life, but also of carrying on as if nothing had happened. Marta was last seen alive at 10:56 p.m. on October 15th, entering Pavel's room. Detectives believed she died shortly after, likely before midnight, given the photo Pavel took at 11:01 p.m. and the severity of her 32 sharp force injuries. The stab wounds to her neck were the direct cause of death, per the post-mortem. Pavel's arrest came on October 21st, once he was stable. He was charged with murder, and the evidence, CCTV, phone records and forensic findings, was overwhelming. Prosecutors outlined his motive, jealousy, and a refusal to accept Marta's new life. He'd told friends he couldn't stand the thought of someone else touching her, a sentiment that drove his final act. By March 3, 2022, when Pavel Komilecki stood in Northampton Crown Court and admitted to murdering Marta, the case was already a focal point for Kettering's community and beyond. His guilty plea meant there'd be no full trial, sparing Marta's family the agony of reliving every detail in open court. Instead, the court moved to a sentencing hearing on September 6, 2023, where the focus was on determining Pavel's punishment and giving Marta's loved ones a chance to share their grief. Marta's brother and sister-in-law sat in the gallery, their faces etched with loss, as they waited to hear what price Pavel would pay for stealing her life.
Marta's family have requested that I read out the following statement on their behalf, and I shall do so now. Marta was exceptional. She was full of life, she was kind, cheerful, helpful and smart. You never had to ask her for help. She was always just there for us, whatever we needed. She loved our children and was a fantastic auntie to them both. Marta was definitely a daddy's girl too. They had such a bond and such a loving relationship. After her death, her father began stuttering and now finds it very hard to communicate at all. He has really suffered, as have we all. Marta had so many plans and dreams. She was independent and confident, and we loved her so much. It's never going to be the same without her. Losing Marta has changed our whole lives.
The prosecution, led by Northamptonshire Police and the Crown Prosecution Service, built a compelling case for a severe sentence. They argued that Pavel's actions were not a spur-of-the-moment lapse, but the culmination of a pattern of control and obsession. They pointed to her defensive wounds, 7 on her right hand, as proof she fought for her life. Those last moments of her life would have been utterly terrifying, Judge David Herbert later said, echoing the prosecution's portrayal of a deliberate, ferocious act driven by jealousy over Marta's new relationship. The prosecution also brought up Pavel's history of domestic abuse, citing incidents in August 2020, Easter 2021, and September 2021 to show his escalating aggression. In 2020, he had come to the shop in Rockingham Road where she was working and confronted her about her relationships with other men. He searched her phone after snatching it from her to find evidence of affairs. Komilecki then punched Marta repeatedly, leaving her with bruises on her back and face, and with a cut lip. The police were called, and she made a statement that was later withdrawn. Komilecki apologized to his wife as part of a community resolution process. In September that year, she left him, but the harassment continued with phone calls and messages. The following year in Easter 2021, he became aggressive at a family party, pushing her about. 3 months before her death, he tracked down Marta at the Warren pub. He grabbed her arm and was intimidating towards her. The following month, he was reported for harassment. Marta lived in fear, telling friends she worried Pavel would kill her. Her attempts to break free, moving out, planning a divorce in Poland, and begging him to leave her alone, were met with relentless stalking and manipulation, like the deceptive texts he sent from her phone to delay suspicion. The prosecution stressed Pavel's lack of remorse. He stayed with Marta's body for nearly 4 days, casually buying beer, and initially denied his abusive past, trying to control the court process. They pushed for a life sentence with a substantial minimum term, arguing that Pavel's actions warranted no leniency. The defense, representing Pavel, had little room to maneuver given his guilty plea and the overwhelming evidence. With an interpreter assisting the 40-year-old, they acknowledged the gravity of his crime, but argued for a shorter minimum term. They claimed Pavel's actions were impulsive, driven by emotional turmoil over the end of his marriage and Marta's new relationship. The defense suggested he was devastated by the breakup, pointing to his self-inflicted wounds as evidence of remorse or mental distress. They argued that while the attack was horrific, it wasn't premeditated in the sense of a long-planned scheme, and Pavel's guilty plea spared the family a trial. But these arguments landed weakly against the prosecution's evidence of Pavel's calculated stalking and the brutality of the attack. On September 6, 2023, Judge Herbert delivered the verdict. Pavel Komilecki was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 18 years and 4 months. It was a sustained and ferocious attack born entirely out of anger and jealousy, the judge said, addressing Pavel directly. He emphasized Marta's fear, noting, "It's clear from the evidence that Marta did not feel safe with you and was concerned that you would end up killing her." The judge warned that Pavel might never be released, as parole would depend on the parole board's assessment of his risk to the public. The sentence meant Pavel, then 40, would be at least 58 before he could even apply for parole, a significant term reflecting the crime's severity. The impact on Marta's family was profound. Her brother and sister-in-law, who attended the sentencing, released a heartrending statement through Northamptonshire Police. The family's words underscored that no sentence could undo their pain, but the verdict offered a small measure of closure, knowing Pavel was held accountable. This true crime story leaves us with a lingering question. How can we better protect those like Marta, who fought so hard for their freedom? Her courage in leaving an abusive relationship, her dreams of a brighter future, and her love for her family remind us of the lives at stake in these cases. What can communities, police, and each of us do to ensure no one else faces such a tragic end? It's a question worth reflecting on as we close this chapter. That's where this story ends. Thank you for joining me on this journey to honor Marta Komileka's life. If this story moved you, please hit that like button, subscribe to Checkered Sky, and ring the bell so you never miss a true crime deep dive. Share your thoughts in the comments. What stood out to you about Marta's story? Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep chasing the truth. See you soon. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're diving into a chilling case that's been haunting headlines and tugging at hearts across 2 continents. Anna Knežević was a 40-year-old Colombian-born, naturalized U.S. citizen with a life many would envy. She had built a successful career in South Florida, co-owning EOX Technology Solutions, a thriving IT company. Seeking a fresh start, Anna left Florida in December 2023 and settled into an apartment in Madrid's upscale Salamanca district, a neighborhood buzzing with culture and charm. On February 2, 2024, Anna was last seen by neighbors entering her apartment building around 10 p.m. She had spoken to a friend earlier that evening, mentioning she planned to stay in due to the chilly weather. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. The next day, Anna's phone went silent. She didn't respond to calls or messages, which was unlike her. Her friend, Sana Ramo, contacted authorities, and on February 4th, Madrid's firefighters conducted a welfare check at Anna's apartment. The door was locked from the outside, and inside, nothing seemed out of place. No signs of a struggle, no missing valuables. But Anna was gone, along with her phone, laptop, and chargers. Adding to the mystery is the fact that the day after her disappearance on February 3rd, 2 of Anna's friends received strange text messages from her phone. The messages, one in English and one in Spanish, read, "I met someone wonderful. He has a summer house about 2 hours from Madrid. We are going there now, and I will spend a few days there. There is barely any signal though. I'll call you when I come back." Her friends were stunned. Anna, cautious and deliberate, would never run off with a stranger she'd just met on the street. The messages didn't sound like her at all. When they tried to reply, there was no response. Her phone was off, and Anna was nowhere to be found. As authorities dug deeper, the case took a darker turn. Anna's disappearance wasn't just a missing persons case. It had all the hallmarks of something more sinister. Born on May 26, 1983 in Colombia, Ana Maria Henao grew up in Medellin, a city known for its resilience and vibrant culture. From a young age, she showed a spark of determination and curiosity. She pursued higher education at IFIT University, earning dual bachelor's degrees in international business and business administration and management. Her academic achievements laid the foundation for a career that would take her far beyond her hometown. After graduating, Anna emigrated to the United States, a bold move that reflected her courage and drive to carve out her own path. She settled in South Florida, where she became a naturalized U.S. citizen, embracing her new home while staying deeply connected to her Colombian roots. In the U.S., Anna's professional journey began in the medical industry, where she worked in general management. Her knack for leadership and problem-solving caught attention, and she thrived in high-pressure environments. Eventually, she joined EOX Technology Solutions, a South Florida-based IT company that provided computer support for local businesses. Anna served as the director of projects, bringing her organizational skills and business acumen to the firm. Anna's disappearance on February 2, 2024, wasn't just a puzzle of a single night. It was rooted in the unraveling of her personal life and the high-stakes disputes that followed. To understand what might have led to that chilling moment in Madrid, we need to explore the cracks that formed in her 13-year marriage, the financial battles that intensified, and how Anna's decision to start anew in Spain set the stage for the mystery that would captivate 2 continents. Anna and David Knežević had built an enviable life together in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Married since 2010, they were partners in both love and business, co-owning EOX Technology Solutions. Their portfolio also included EOX Capital LLC, a real estate venture managing 15 properties valued at over $15 million, and Registered Corporate Agents LLC, another business tied to their financial empire. Their home in Fort Lauderdale, along with 2 other properties, reflected their wealth and ambition. But beneath the surface of their success, their relationship began to falter. By the summer of 2023, what once seemed like a strong partnership had deteriorated, leading to a separation that would spiral into a contentious divorce. The heart of their conflict lay in the division of their substantial assets. Anna, known for her fairness and drive, proposed an equal 50-50 split of their wealth, a suggestion that sources close to her family said David resisted fiercely. He reportedly argued for Anna to receive only 25% of their shared assets, a stance that turned negotiations into a battleground. The stakes were high, not just emotionally, but financially, with millions tied up in their businesses and real estate holdings, including one property already facing foreclosure. These disputes weren't just about money. They were about control, legacy, and the future each envisioned after their marriage ended. As the divorce proceedings grew more heated, Anna made a bold decision. In late December 2023, she packed her bags and left Florida for Madrid, Spain, seeking a fresh start. The move wasn't impulsive. Anna had always loved travel, and Madrid's vibrant culture and historic charm had captured her heart. Her best friend, Sana Ramo, recalled Anna's excitement about the city's atmosphere, its art, and its energy. She rented an apartment in the upscale Salamanca district, a neighborhood known for its elegant streets and bustling social scene. Anna saw Madrid as a place to heal and rebuild, a canvas for her next chapter. In January 2024, she took a short trip to Austria with a friend, a brief escape that showed her embracing her new life. Back in Madrid, she settled into a routine, connecting with neighbors and making plans, like the train trip to Barcelona she was set to take on February 5th. Her apartment, a cozy space in a secure building, became her sanctuary, a place where she could focus on herself and her goals. David's reaction to Anna's relocation was complex. According to his attorney, Ken Padowitz, David remained in Serbia, his native country, during this period, focusing on his own life and business interests. Padowitz claimed the couple's separation was more amicable than Anna's family suggested, even stating that David and Anna had discussed hiring a single attorney to streamline their divorce and asset division. However, Anna's family and friends painted a different picture. Her brother Felipe told authorities that David was frustrated by the financial implications of the divorce, particularly the potential loss of a significant portion of their wealth. Friends noted that Anna rarely spoke of David after moving to Madrid, suggesting she was focused on moving forward rather than dwelling on their strained relationship. David's limited cooperation with authorities raised eyebrows. When Anna's friends and family first reached out to him after her disappearance, he was slow to respond, claiming he was in Serbia and unaware of her whereabouts. He provided some credit card information to Spanish police and signed documents to allow access to Anna's apartment, but his engagement was minimal, and he quickly hired a criminal defense attorney in the U.S. This contrasted with Anna's family's active involvement, as they worked tirelessly with the FBI and Spanish National Police to spread awareness and seek answers. The disappearance of Ana Knežević from her Madrid apartment on February 2, 2024, sent shockwaves through her family and friends, leaving investigators with a puzzle that grew more complex by the day. As the Spanish National Police, joined by the FBI, dug into the case, they uncovered a trail of eerie clues, strange messages, tampered cameras, and a web of international movements that pointed to a calculated act. The investigation began in earnest on February 4th, when Anna's friend Sana Ramo reported her missing after she failed to respond to calls and missed a planned train trip to Barcelona. Madrid firefighters entered Anna's Salamanca apartment that day, finding it locked from the outside and eerily undisturbed. Her bed was made, her belongings were in place, but her phone, laptop, and chargers were gone. It was like she stepped out for a moment and never came back, a police source told CNN. The absence of any signs of forced entry or struggle suggested Ana either left willingly or was taken by someone she knew, or someone who planned their move with precision. The first major clue came from the building's security cameras. Around 9:27 p.m. on February 2nd, footage captured a man wearing a motorcycle helmet entering the building as residents exited. He moved deliberately, spray painting the entrance camera's lens with black paint and taping over the lock to prevent it from engaging. The building superintendent later told CNN that the camera near the elevator was also disabled, leaving a blind spot in the footage. An hour later, at 10:30 p.m., the man reappeared, exiting the elevator with a suitcase in hand. He walked out into the night, and the cameras, those still functioning, never caught him again. The suitcase raised immediate questions. What was inside it, and did it have anything to do with Ana's disappearance? Adding to the intrigue were the text messages sent from Ana's phone on February 3rd. Sana Ramo received one in English at around 2 p.m., while another friend in Madrid got a similar message in Spanish 2 hours later. Both read nearly identically. "I met someone wonderful. He has a summer house about 2 hours from Madrid. We are going there now, and I will spend a few days there. There is barely any signal, though. I'll call you when I come back." The Spanish message, in particular, struck Ana's Madrid friend as odd. It contained punctuation like periods and commas, which Ana rarely used, and felt like a clunky translation. When friends tried to reply, Ana's phone was off, its signal gone. The police quickly zeroed in on these messages as a red flag. Ana's cautious nature made it unlikely she'd run off with a stranger, especially without telling anyone during her hour-long call with Sana the previous night. The texts suggested someone else had access to her phone, crafting a story to buy time or mislead her loved ones. Investigators began tracing the phone's last known location, but with no signal. It was like chasing a ghost. As detectives combed through Ana's recent activities, they learned she'd been house hunting in Madrid that day, visiting a property she later told Sana she didn't like. The police checked her financial records, finding no unusual transactions. Nothing pointed to a reason she'd vanish voluntarily. The absence of ransom demands or signs of theft ruled out a random crime, leading investigators to suspect someone with a personal motive. The surveillance footage became a cornerstone of the case. Spanish police traced the brand of spray paint used on the cameras to a Madrid hardware store. Police also learned that a motorcycle helmet matching the one in the footage had been sold at a nearby shop days earlier, though the buyer's identity remained elusive. Another breakthrough came from license plate readers. On the night of February 2nd, a stolen plate was recorded on Ana's street, attached to a Peugeot 308 with tinted windows. Hours later, the same car passed through a toll booth near Madrid, but the tinted windows obscured the driver. The plate had been stolen in Madrid days earlier, suggesting premeditation. Spanish police shared this with the FBI, who began exploring international connections given Ana's ties to the US and her estranged husband's Serbian background. The car's description didn't match any vehicles linked to Ana's known contacts, but its presence on her street at the critical moment was too coincidental to ignore. They looked into Ana's social circle in Madrid, including men she'd met casually. As federal prosecutors later noted, she'd begun dating after moving to Spain. None stood out as suspicious, most had alibis, and none matched the man in the footage. The police also explored whether Ana's wealth made her a target for extortion, but the lack of any demand dismissed this theory. The police canvassed the area, posting missing person flyers. The investigation took a global turn as detectives traced leads beyond Spain. They learned that a Peugeot 308, rented in Belgrade, Serbia, on January 29th, had traveled nearly 4,800 miles by mid-March, far more than a typical rental. The car, returned with tinted windows and a new license plate frame, raised suspicions. The FBI began examining travel records, focusing on individuals with ties to both Ana and Serbia. The breakthrough came with an arrest that stunned Ana's family and friends, revealing a man whose life was deeply entwined with hers. On May 4, 2024, David Knezevich, Ana's estranged husband, was arrested by FBI agents at Miami International Airport as he stepped off a flight from Serbia. The arrest capped a months-long investigation that spanned continents, with U.S. and Spanish authorities working in tandem to build a case. David, a 36-year-old Serbian-American IT entrepreneur, had been under scrutiny since Ana vanished on February 2, 2024. His limited cooperation early on, coupled with emerging evidence, had shifted the investigation's focus to him. David's biography revealed a man of ambition and complexity. Born in Serbia, he moved to the United States, where he became a naturalized citizen and built a successful career in IT. Alongside Ana, he co-founded EOX Technology Solutions in Fort Lauderdale, serving as a key figure in its operations. Described by colleagues as tech-savvy and driven, David was known for his sharp business acumen. However, friends of Ana noted he could be controlling, particularly in financial matters, a trait that surfaced during their contentious divorce proceedings in 2023. His life in Serbia, where he spent increasing time after their separation, was less clear, with investigators probing his activities there for additional leads. After his arrest, David was questioned by FBI agents, but his statements were guarded. He denied any involvement in Ana's disappearance, claiming he was in Serbia on February 2nd and had no knowledge of her whereabouts. He confirmed signing documents to allow Spanish police access to Ana's apartment and providing some credit card information, but insisted he'd done all he could to assist. When pressed about the divorce and financial disputes, David downplayed their severity, echoing his attorney Ken Padowitz's claim that the couple had considered a single lawyer to handle their asset division amicably. However, he offered no explanation for the suspicious evidence piling up against him, including travel records and financial transactions that contradicted his timeline. The criminal complaint outlined a damning case. Prosecutors alleged David orchestrated a plan to kidnap Ana amid their bitter divorce, motivated by financial and personal grievances. The complaint detailed how, on January 29, 2024, David rented a Peugeot in Belgrade, Serbia, which was later driven nearly 4,800 miles by mid-March, an unusual distance for a rental car. Surveillance footage from a Madrid hardware store showed a man resembling David purchasing spray paint and duct tape on February 2nd, hours before the helmeted figure disabled cameras at Ana's building. The stolen license plate on a Peugeot, recorded near Anna's street that night, further tied the vehicle to the crime. Anna's push for a 50-50 split of their $15 million in assets, including EOX Technology Solutions and their real estate holdings, had sparked intense conflict. Prosecutors suggested David saw Anna's move to Madrid as a threat to his control over their shared empire, prompting a drastic act to eliminate her. The absence of Anna's body complicated the case, but the complaint noted that kidnapping charges could be filed based on evidence of intent and action, even without a confirmed death. David's attorney, Ken Padowitz, pushed back against the allegations, calling the evidence circumstantial and emphasizing David's cooperation early in the investigation. "He's innocent until proven guilty," Padowitz told NBC News, urging the public to wait for the full story to unfold in court. As David awaited trial, detained without bond due to the severity of the charge and his international ties, investigators continued their search for Anna. As the case moved toward trial, the stakes were high, with David facing charges of kidnapping, foreign domestic violence resulting in death, and foreign murder of a U.S. national. By late 2024, the case had progressed to the pre-trial phase in Miami's federal court. Prosecutors alleged that David, driven by the bitter divorce and disputes over their $15 million in shared assets, traveled from Miami to Serbia, then to Spain, to carry out a premeditated plan. They pointed to damning evidence: security footage of a man resembling David purchasing spray paint and duct tape in Madrid, the stolen license plate on a Peugeot he rented in Belgrade, and his request to a Colombian woman he met online to translate messages into perfect Colombian Spanish that were later sent from Anna's phone. The prosecution's case rested on this circumstantial but compelling evidence. They highlighted David's financial moves, including the sale of 7 Broward County properties for $6 million between December 2023 and February 2024, suggesting he was liquidating assets to fund his actions or prepare to flee. A GPS alert on the rented Peugeot, showing a detour to Vicenza, Italy, led to a joint search by Italian, Spanish, and FBI authorities in August 2024, though no remains were found. David's defense team, led by attorneys Jane Weintraub, Christopher Cavallo, and Bruce Zemet, maintained his innocence, arguing the case was built on speculation. A Spanish police forensic report, cited by Weintraub, found no traces of blood in the apartment. There is no evidence that David Knežević kidnapped or murdered his wife, the defense stated, calling the charges a desperate attempt to pin blame without concrete proof. They also disputed the prosecution's narrative about David's travel, insisting he was in Serbia on February 2, 2024, over 1,600 miles from Madrid, and had cooperated by providing credit card details to Spanish police. As the trial date approached, set for June 2025, both sides prepared for a high-profile courtroom battle. But before the trial could begin, a devastating event changed everything. On April 28, 2025, David Knežević was found unresponsive in his cell at the Federal Detention Center in Miami. His defense team confirmed he had chosen to end his own life, a decision that shocked all involved. The Federal Bureau of Prisons reported that staff attempted life-saving measures, but David was pronounced dead by emergency services. The FBI launched an investigation into his death, with no further details released. Anna's family was left reeling. Through their attorney, Adam Ingber, they issued a statement reflecting their complex emotions. "The death of Anna's alleged perpetrator closes a painful chapter in our lives, previously filled with the dread that he might not face justice. Now, we may never know where he put Anna's body. It is a cruel final insult that we may never recover Anna's remains or know the full extent of the betrayal she suffered." They vowed to continue seeking truth and justice, honoring Anna's memory with dignity, strength, and love. As of June 2025, Ana's remains have not been found. The joint efforts of the FBI, Spanish National Police, and Italian authorities continue, with searches focused on areas like Vicenza, where the Peugeot's GPS data suggested David may have stopped. With David's death, the trial that could have clarified Ana's fate never took place. Questions linger. What happened in that Madrid apartment? Why did David, if guilty, choose such an extreme path? And where is Ana? If you want more true crime stories that unravel the human spirit, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and join our community. Share your thoughts below. What do you think happened to Ana? Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep chasing the truth. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel, where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're unraveling a case that shook Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A story of a young woman, a first date, and a mystery that left a community searching for answers. It was April 1st, 2024, in Milwaukee, a city buzzing with life along the shores of Lake Michigan. Sade Robinson, a 19-year-old with a magnetic smile and big dreams, was getting ready for a night out. That evening, Sade was excited about something new, a first date. She left her apartment, her phone pinging on the Life 360 app she used to share her location with friends and family for safety. As the night unfolded, Sade Robinson's movements were tracked through the app. She visited a popular seafood restaurant, Twisted Fisherman, then headed to a bar called Duke's on Water. By the morning of April 2nd, her phone had gone silent. She didn't show up for her shift at Pizza Shuttle. Her co-workers, worried by her absence, called the police for a welfare check. This wasn't like Sade. She was reliable, always letting someone know her plans. Her mother, Sheena Scarborough, hadn't heard from her since their Easter Sunday family gathering on March 31st, where they'd laughed and shared a meal at her grandparents' house. That memory of hugging Sade as she left with her sister Adriana was the last time Sheena saw her daughter. By April 3rd, Milwaukee police issued a critical missing person alert, a designation used when someone is believed to be in danger. Born on May 10, 2004, in Vicksburg, Mississippi, Sade moved to Milwaukee with her mother, Sheena Scarborough, before she was 2 years old. As a toddler, Sade struggled with hearing issues requiring an outpatient procedure to get tubes in her ears. This caused her to develop speech delays that she overcame with the support of speech pathologists. Her early years were split between Milwaukee and Florida, where her father, Carlos Robinson, lived. Though her parents never married, they worked hard to co-parent, ensuring Sade grew up surrounded by love. While in 7th grade, she moved to Florida to live with her father. However, when she was around 15 years old, her mother noticed that her mental health was deteriorating and that living in her father's unstable environment was becoming dangerous for her. In 2019, she chose to return to Milwaukee permanently to live with her mother, a decision that marked her determination to carve her own path. Her family described her as a standout, not just for her beauty, but for her drive and kindness. She was a criminal justice student at Milwaukee Area Technical College, just weeks away from earning her Associate of Arts degree when she vanished. She had a clear vision for her future, with aspirations to join the U.S. Air Force, following in the footsteps of her grandfather, a retired Navy veteran, and her uncle, an Army veteran. At Pizza Shuttle, where she worked as a cashier, and at the Wisconsin Country Club, her second job, Sade was a favorite among co-workers and customers. Her infectious laugh and willingness to help, like giving leftover pizza to unhoused people outside the restaurant, made her unforgettable. Sade Robinson's vibrant life, filled with ambition and warmth, made her disappearance all the more jarring. As Milwaukee's community rallied around her family, questions swirled about the night of April 1, 2024, when she was last seen. The trail of digital clues and surveillance footage began to paint a picture, but it was one that raised more questions than answers. Let's follow the timeline of that fateful evening, piecing together the moments that led to Sade Robinson's vanishing. Her connection with Maxwell Anderson, a 33-year-old Milwaukee bartender, wasn't entirely new. Court documents later revealed they had met at least once before, on March 29, 2024, at Victor's nightclub, a downtown bar where Anderson worked part-time. Surveillance footage from that night showed them leaving the bar together, their body language suggesting a friendly interaction. It's unclear how they first crossed paths. Some speculated Sade might have met him while he was bartending, possibly at Victor's or another local spot like Twisted Fisherman, where he'd also worked. Her family, however, was puzzled, as Sade hadn't mentioned Anderson to them. What was clear was that by April 1st, they had exchanged enough texts to plan a date. At 4:15 p.m. that day, Sade sent a message to a number later linked to Anderson, saying she was feeling seafood and suggesting they meet at Twisted Fisherman, a popular restaurant in the Menomonee Valley. The plan was set for 5 p.m., and Sade, dressed in ripped jeans, a white shirt, and a black jacket, told her apartment's building secretary she was excited for the evening ahead. Surveillance footage from Twisted Fisherman captured the start of their date. At around 5 p.m., Sade and Maxwell arrived, sitting down for dinner and drinks. The video showed them eating and chatting, with no visible signs of tension. Anderson, familiar with the restaurant from his time working there, appeared comfortable, while Sade seemed engaged. They stayed for about an hour and a half, leaving just before 6:30 p.m. in a 2020 Honda Civic belonging to Sade. The footage didn't suggest anything out of the ordinary, just two people enjoying a meal. From there, they headed to Duke's on Water, a lively bar at 158 East Juneau Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. The pair drank, played beer pong, and mingled, with Anderson taking extra shots and briefly stepping outside at 8:30 p.m. At 9:03 p.m., the cameras captured them exiting the bar and heading toward Anderson's home on the city's south side, in the 3100 block of South 39th Street. The Life 360 app, which Sade used to share her location with her mother and friends, confirmed their next stop. By 9:24 p.m., her phone pinged at Anderson's residence, a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. Surveillance from a neighbor's camera showed two figures, presumed to be Sade and Anderson, entering the property through the side yard. What happened inside remains a critical gap in the timeline, but the footage offered a glimpse of activity. A light turned on inside, and later, around 11:25 p.m., someone was seen leaving through the side yard, returning by 11:47 p.m. The camera caught more movement until about 12:47 a.m., when Honda pulled away from the house. Her phone's GPS data tracked the car's path through Milwaukee's downtown, past her apartment, and north to Pleasant Valley Park in the River West neighborhood by 1:33 a.m. From there, it moved to Warnemont Park in Cudahy, arriving at 2:45 a.m. Surveillance from Cudahy High School showed a car heading toward the park's pump house, and at 3:02 a.m., a figure was seen descending the steep bluff toward the Lake Michigan shoreline, making multiple trips up and down. By 4:31 a.m., the car left the park, and minutes later, Sade Robinson's phone battery died, its last ping placing it near Warnemont Park. The next morning, April 2nd, the city woke to a series of alarming discoveries. At 7:32 a.m., the Milwaukee Fire Department responded to a vehicle fire near 30th and Lisbon, about 10 miles from Anderson's home. The burning car was Sade Robinson's Honda Civic, its interior gutted, with her clothes, matching what she wore on the date, found in the trunk, along with remnants of a cell phone. Around the same time, Cudahy city workers reported a damaged gate at Warnemont Park, suggesting a car had rammed it open to access a service road near the pump house. By 5:29 p.m., a parkgoer made a chilling find. A severed human leg, believed to belong to a black female, lay 2/3 down the 100-foot bluff near the shoreline. Meanwhile, Sade Robinson's co-workers at Pizza Shuttle, alarmed by her no-show, had contacted police the previous evening, around 9 p.m., prompting the welfare check at her apartment. The police searched her apartment and found no evidence of foul play. By April 3rd, Milwaukee police issued a critical missing person alert, and the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, already investigating the leg, was notified of Sade Robinson's disappearance. The pieces were falling into place, but the question remained: what happened to Sade after she left Dukes on water, and who was responsible for the grim trail left behind? The leg, described in the criminal complaint as sawn off at the hip, was determined through preliminary DNA testing to belong to a black woman, approximately 5 feet tall, matching the description of Sade. Sheriff Danita Ball later noted, "To know someone has been dismembered in a fashion like that, our investigators want to find justice for the victim," emphasizing the urgency of the case. As police connected Sade Robinson's disappearance to the Warnemont Park discovery, the community mobilized. Family, friends, and strangers organized search parties, scouring areas mentioned in early police reports. On April 5th, near 31st and Galena, close to where the burned-out car was found, searchers discovered a human foot in a wooded area by train tracks, believed to match the leg from Cudahy. The next day, April 6th, more remains, described as human flesh, turned up in the same vicinity. On April 7th, Sade Robinson's family found her blanket near 30th and Lisbon, in an area police had already searched, raising questions about the thoroughness of the official efforts. The burned car, a 2020 Honda Civic, was a critical piece of the puzzle. At 7:32 a.m. on April 2nd, the Milwaukee Fire Department responded to a fire in a parking lot at 1800 North 29th Street. A witness reported seeing a white male in a gray hoodie and tan backpack exit the vehicle and toss a lighter into it before walking away. Despite the extreme fire damage that gutted the interior, investigators recovered Sade Robinson's clothes, ripped jeans and a white shirt, matching her outfit from April 1st, and remnants of an iPhone consistent with hers in the trunk. Surveillance footage from a Milwaukee County Transit System bus captured a man matching the witness's description, later identified as Maxwell Anderson, boarding at 8:23 a.m. and getting off near his home at 8:35 a.m. The hoodie found in his car during a later traffic stop matched the one seen in the footage, tying him to the scene. Surveillance footage became a cornerstone of the investigation, mapping out Anderson's movements. On April 2nd, at 2:45 a.m., cameras at Cudahy High School near Warnemont Park captured a car heading toward the pump house, followed by a figure descending the bluff to the beach level, making multiple trips until 4:31 a.m., when the vehicle left. This aligned with Sade Robinson's phone data, which showed it stationary at Warnemont Park before losing battery at 4:36 a.m. These clips, combined with Life 360 data, created a damning timeline, as Milwaukee County Assistant District Attorney Ian Vance Curzon later told jurors. The evidence in this case is going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Maxwell Anderson intentionally killed Sade and then sought to have her disappear from this world. On April 4th, police executed a search warrant at Anderson's home on the 3100 block of South 39th Street. The findings were unsettling: blood on a comforter in a bedroom, blood on the walls leading to the basement, and several gasoline containers in the garage. Detectives also discovered a knife in the kitchen sink, a large black axe on the living room wall, women's clothing hidden between a basement support beam and the foundation, and a woman's ID card unrelated to Sade. As for knives, more than 50 were found in Anderson's house. Surprisingly, early forensic testing showed the blood in the home did not match Sade Robinson's DNA, complicating the narrative. The community's grief turned to action, with searches continuing across Milwaukee County. On April 18th, a torso and arm washed ashore on a South Milwaukee beach, followed by a right arm in Waukegan, Illinois, on May 11th, both presumed to be Sade Robinson's. The Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, coordinating with 13 other agencies and a nonprofit, Bruce's Legacy, conducted maritime searches in Lake Michigan, including one on April 29th at Warnemont Park, but found no additional remains. On April 4th at 1:16 p.m., sheriff's deputies arrested Anderson during a traffic stop near his home, citing the hoodie match and surveillance evidence. As the community demanded answers, investigators dug into his past, piecing together a troubling history while grappling with his silence in custody. Maxwell Stephen Anderson, born on November 1, 1990, was 33 years old at the time of his arrest. A Milwaukee native, he grew up in a working-class family and lived in a modest home on the city's south side. Anderson's professional life centered around Milwaukee's bar scene, where he worked as a bartender at establishments like Victor's Nightclub and Twisted Fisherman. Described as charismatic by some, he was a familiar face in the nightlife, often mingling with patrons. However, his personal history revealed a darker side. Court records showed a pattern of legal troubles stretching back over a decade. In 2014, Anderson was convicted of disorderly conduct after a physical altercation at a bar. In 2019, he faced charges of battery, disorderly conduct, and second-degree reckless endangerment for attacking his sister's boyfriend with a baseball bat, though he pleaded guilty to lesser charges. A 2021 incident led to another disorderly conduct conviction after he assaulted a man outside a bar, breaking his nose. These episodes painted a picture of a man prone to volatile behavior, often triggered in social settings. Anderson's personal life offered few clues about deeper motivations. He was not married and had no children, and while he had ties to his family, some incidents involved conflicts with relatives. A woman who went on a date with Anderson in the past told 12 News that he seemed unreliable, often starting construction projects, like a large hole in his backyard, without finishing them. She recalled him inviting her to see his basement, describing it as creepy, though she declined. During interrogation, Anderson exercised his right to remain silent, offering no statements about Sade Robinson's disappearance or the evidence mounting against him. This silence left investigators reliant on physical and digital evidence, as Anderson provided no explanation for the blood found in his home, the surveillance footage, or his presence near the burned car. A notable detail emerged from a text message he sent to Sade Robinson's phone on April 2nd at 10 a.m., asking, "How's your day going?" Prosecutors suggested it may have been evidence of an attempt to cover their tracks. On April 12, 2024, the Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office charged Anderson with 3 felonies: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and hiding a corpse, along with a misdemeanor charge of arson of property other than a building. His bail was set at $5 million. The homicide charge, Wisconsin's most serious, carried a potential life sentence without parole, reflecting the gravity of the case. The criminal complaint detailed a deliberate act, stating that Anderson intentionally killed and then dismembered Sade, with her remains scattered to conceal the crime. However, no murder weapon was identified, and the exact cause of death remained undisclosed due to the condition of the remains. The motive was equally elusive. Prosecutors offered no clear reason for the crime, and the absence of a prior relationship beyond their brief encounters left investigators speculating about a possible escalation during their date. The informant told police they were at Anderson's home on March 5th, according to court filings. Anderson showed the informant his basement, the informant said, including a plastic tarp that covered a sanitation sink, ceiling, floor, and walls. According to the informant's statement in the court filings, Anderson told the informant he intended to kill Sade Robinson, using a gun to get her down into the basement. The confidential informant's claim that Anderson confessed in March to planning to kill and dismember Sade was met with skepticism, as Milwaukee County Assistant District Attorney Ian Vance Curzon noted in court documents that such premeditation seemed unusual without corroboration. The arrest of Maxwell Anderson on April 4, 2024, marked a turning point in the investigation into Sade Robinson's tragic death, but the road to justice was far from straightforward. With charges of first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, hiding a corpse, and arson looming over him, Anderson's silence left a void filled only by the weight of circumstantial evidence. As Milwaukee awaited answers, the case moved to trial, a grueling process that tested the resilience of Sade Robinson's family and captivated a community. Let's delve into the trial, the arguments that shaped it, the verdict that followed, and the lasting impact on those who loved Sade. The trial, officially State of Wisconsin versus Maxwell Anderson, began on May 27, 2025, in Milwaukee County Circuit Court under Judge Laura Crivello. Jury selection set the stage, with 73 potential jurors whittled down to 12, 9 women and 3 men, including 2 black jurors, plus 3 alternates. The process was meticulous, as the case's high profile meant many had heard of Sade Robinson's story. Defense attorney Jonathan Lavoie noted, "It's all but certain some jurors will have at least some knowledge of the case," emphasizing the need for those who could remain impartial. Opening statements on May 28 set a stark contrast. Prosecutor Ian Vance Curzon laid out a chilling narrative, telling jurors, "Maxwell Anderson intentionally killed Sade and attempted to make her disappear from this world."
What Maxwell Anderson did to Sade Robinson was an intentional homicide. There is no question behind the intent, and there's no question about the person responsible for doing it. The killer is him. He's the last person to be with her, the last one texting her, the last one whose residence she was at, the last one who had her car, the last one who had her phone, the last one who was with her.
The defense, led by Anthony Cotton, countered that the state lacked direct evidence, pointing out, they didn't find Sade Robinson's blood in the house, no murder weapon, and no clear cause of death. Cotton urged jurors to question the prosecution's timeline and intent, suggesting reasonable doubt. Over 7 days, the prosecution called dozens of witnesses, including law enforcement, forensic experts, and Sade Robinson's co-workers. They presented a detailed timeline, surveillance footage from Twisted Fisherman and Dukes on Water showing Sade and Anderson together on April 1, 2024. Life 360, data tracking her phone to Anderson's home and later to Warnemont Park, and Milwaukee County Transit System footage capturing Anderson near the site of Sade Robinson's burned car. A particularly haunting piece of evidence was a photo from Anderson's phone, described by Vance Curzon as showing Sade face down on his couch, with Anderson's hand on her, though Cotton argued it was unclear if she was deceased. Detectives testified about items found in Anderson's home: knives, an axe, a gray hoodie matching the bus footage. Assistant Medical Examiner Dr. Lauren Decker called the autopsy very unusual, noting it spanned months due to missing remains, with the cause of death listed as homicide by unspecified means. The defense called no witnesses, and Anderson chose not to testify, a decision Cotton explained as a strategic to avoid risky cross-examination. On June 5, 2025, after closing arguments, the jury began deliberating. The prosecution reiterated Anderson's intent, with Vance Curzon stating, "There is no question about the person responsible for doing it." Cotton argued the state's case was riddled with holes, noting no neighbors heard a struggle, and Anderson didn't conceal his identity on the bus. After just 45 minutes across 2 days, The jury delivered a unanimous guilty verdict on June 6 on all counts: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, hiding a corpse, and arson. Anderson remained stoic as Judge Crivello read the verdict, while Sade Robinson's family, including her mother, Sheena Scarborough, embraced in the hallway, overcome with emotion. Sentencing was set for August 15, 2025, with the homicide conviction carrying a mandatory life sentence without parole in Wisconsin. The verdict brought partial closure, but no true solace. Sheena Scarborough told the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, "There's no such thing as justice. We don't have her." Carlos Robinson spoke to Fox 6 News, saying, "It's the most agonizing, painful thing," and vowed to continue fighting for her legacy. They also filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Anderson in June 2024 and a civil suit against the bars where Sade and Anderson drank, seeking accountability. Both establishments served Sade alcohol without checking her age. Community support remained strong, with pink balloons and ribbons, Sade Robinson's favorite color, adorning vigils and memorials. The absence of a clear motive keeps the full truth elusive, leaving Sade Robinson's family to carry her light forward through advocacy and remembrance. Thank you for joining us on Checkered Sky for this heartbreaking journey through Sade Robinson's story. If this case moved you, hit that subscribe button, tap the bell for updates, and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think drove this tragedy? Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep seeking the truth. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Checkered Sky channel where we dive into true crime stories. Today, we're unraveling a heartbreaking story from South Carolina, one that shook a small community and left so many questions unanswered. At just 22 years old, Clarissa Winchester had her whole life ahead of her: dreams, hopes, and a bright spirit. But something went terribly wrong, leading to a tragedy that would change everything. Stick with me as we piece together her story, starting with who she was, a young woman whose life deserves to be remembered. Growing up in South Carolina, she was known for her warmth and determination. Friends described her as someone who always had a smile, even when life got tough. She was close to her family, especially her father, who played a big role in her life. Clarissa had dreams of building a future, maybe settling down one day, and she carried a quiet strength that made her stand out. But like many young people, she was navigating the ups and downs of life, including love. That's when she met Tyler Wilkins, a 21-year-old who entered her world and changed its course. Clarissa Winchester and Tyler Wilkins' relationship started with the kind of spark you'd expect from two young people in their early 20s. Living in Pickens County, South Carolina, they were drawn to each other, sharing moments that seemed full of promise. But by late 2021, that promise was fading fast, replaced by tension that would set the stage for a tragedy no one saw coming. The first major crack appeared on December 2nd, 2021. Clarissa, then 22, showed up at the house she shared with Tyler on Sawmill Road, her father by her side. She wasn't there to talk things out. She was there to pick up her belongings, a sign that things between her and Tyler had soured. What happened next was chilling. As Clarissa and her father stood outside, Tyler pulled out a gun and fired in their direction. No one was hurt, but the incident was a glaring red flag. The Pickens County Sheriff's Office arrested Tyler, charging him with attempted murder, domestic violence, and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. These were serious accusations, painting a picture of a relationship that had turned volatile. In January 2022, a judge granted Tyler bail, but it came with strict rules. Wear an electronic monitor, stay away from guns, and, most importantly, have no contact with Clarissa. The court's orders were clear: meant to keep a dangerous situation from escalating further. For a while, it seemed like Clarissa might be moving on. She was young, with a close-knit family and a life to build. But relationships, especially ones as complicated as this, don't always follow a straight path. By mid-2022, something shifted. Despite the no-contact order, Clarissa and Tyler found their way back to each other. How did they reconnect? The details are scarce. Maybe it was hope that things could be different, or maybe it was the pull of a shared history. Whatever the reason, the two were together again, defying the court's restrictions. By November 2022, Clarissa, at 22, was 6 months pregnant, carrying a son she planned to name Grayson. She and Tyler Wilkins were living together again at the house on Sawmill Road, despite the no-contact order from his January 2022 bail conditions. Their decision to reunite had brought them back under one roof, but it was a fragile arrangement, built on a history of conflict. On November 9, 2022, that fragility shattered, and the house that had once been a place of hope became the scene of an unthinkable tragedy. That morning, Clarissa's father grew alarmed. He hadn't heard from his daughter, which wasn't like her. She was close to her family, and with her pregnancy progressing, they stayed in regular contact. When calls went unanswered, he contacted the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, reporting her missing. His worry set off a swift response. Investigators turned to Clarissa's phone, pulling location data that pointed directly to the Sawmill Road house, the same place where she and Tyler had clashed a year earlier. When deputies questioned Tyler, he claimed he didn't know where Clarissa was. But the phone data told a different story, and suspicions were mounting. With a search warrant in hand, sheriffs entered the house. What they found was devastating. In a bedroom, they discovered Clarissa's body, her life ended by severe injuries to her head and neck from a blunt object. Beside her, on the bed, was her newborn son. At 6 months pregnant, Clarissa's baby hadn't taken a breath, his life lost before it could begin. The scene was heartbreaking, a young woman and her child, gone in an instant. The Pickens County community, already familiar with the couple's troubled history, was left reeling. Clarissa's family, especially her father, faced a grief that words couldn't capture. From the moment deputies stepped into that house, the evidence pointed in one direction. Tyler Wilkins, Clarissa's 21-year-old partner, was at the center of the investigation. The sheriff's office moved quickly, arresting Tyler on November 9th. He faced serious charges: murder for Clarissa's death, charges related to the loss of her newborn child, kidnapping, and child neglect. The weight of these accusations reflected the gravity of what had happened in that bedroom. But Tyler wasn't the only one under scrutiny. Investigators soon learned that his relatives, Michael and Melissa Burnett, were in the house at the time of the incident. Their presence raised immediate questions. Had they witnessed something and stayed silent? Did they know what was happening and fail to act? On November 28, 2022, both Michael and Melissa were arrested, charged with accessory after the fact for their role in the events. Authorities believed they had been aware of the situation but didn't intervene or call for help. While their exact actions, or inaction, remained unclear in public records, their arrests added another layer to this already complex case. The investigation itself was meticulous. Deputies relied on hard evidence to build their case. Clarissa's phone data was a critical piece, showing her last known location at the Sawmill Road house. The physical evidence inside was even more telling. The blunt force injuries to Clarissa's head and neck painted a grim picture of her final moments. Grayson, her son, showed no signs of trauma, suggesting his death was tied to the attack on his mother. The sheriff's office worked diligently, combing through every detail to ensure no stone was left unturned. They knew this case wasn't just about one person. It was about a young woman and her child, whose loss demanded answers. The investigation into Clarissa Winchester's death had gripped Pickens County, and by September 2024, the case reached a pivotal moment. Tyler Wilkins, the 21-year-old at the center of the tragedy, stood before a courtroom to face the consequences of his actions. On September 26, 2024, Tyler Wilkins made a decision that would close one chapter of this heartbreaking story. He pleaded guilty to a series of charges tied to Clarissa's death: murder, first-degree assault and battery, and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as the details of that day were recounted. Clarissa's fatal injuries from a blunt object, the loss of Grayson, who never took a breath, and the shattered lives left behind. The judge handed down a sentence that reflected the severity of the case: 45 years for the murder charge, 10 years for the assault, and 5 years for the weapon charge. All sentences were set to run concurrently, meaning Tyler would serve a total of 45 years behind bars. For Clarissa's family, the 45-year sentence handed to Tyler Wilkins was a form of justice, but it can't bring her back. Her father, her friends, and her community are left to carry her memory forward, honoring the woman she was and the mother she never got to be. This case, like so many true crime stories, leaves us wondering, could anything have been done differently? Tyler's admission of guilt was a stark acknowledgement of his role, yet it left lingering questions about why things had spiraled so far. The involvement of Michael and Melissa Burnett, Tyler's relatives who were charged as accessories, added complexity, but their cases were handled separately, and they faced lesser consequences after their release on bail. According to arrest warrants, the Burnetts, who were Tyler Wilkins' aunt and uncle, were present in the house on Sawmill Road during the attack on Clarissa Winchester, where they allegedly heard her yell and beg for help for approximately 2 hours without intervening or contacting authorities. In the second chapter of this video, we delve into a mystery that has haunted South Carolina for many years: the disappearance of Jordan Nebling, a 19-year-old young woman whose life was just beginning when she vanished without a trace. In October 2020, Jordan walked away from a broken-down car and was never seen again. What happened to her? Why did it take years for the truth to come to light? Stick with me as we unravel this heartbreaking case, starting with who Jordan was, a young woman whose story deserves to be told. Jordan Nebling was a 19-year-old with a spark that drew people in, growing up in Travelers Rest in Marietta, South Carolina. Jordan spent time in foster care before being adopted by her stepmother, Mary Tucker, who became a rock in her world. By 2020, she had landed a job at a local Hardee's, a step toward building a better future. Friends described her as fierce and charismatic, someone who left an impression wherever she went. She was close to her family, especially Mary, who saw her as a daughter full of potential. But Jordan was also at that age where life was full of big decisions, figuring out who she was and where she was headed. On October 10, 2020, she borrowed a car to run some errands, a routine day that should have ended like any other. Instead, it was the last day anyone saw her. Jordan's borrowed car broke down near Old Whitehorse Road, a quiet stretch not far from her usual haunts. Stranded, she did what most of us would do. She pulled out her phone and called someone for help. That someone was Tyler Wilkins, her ex-boyfriend. Jordan and Tyler had been in a relationship before, one that friends and family knew had its ups and downs. At 20 years old, Tyler was a familiar face in Jordan's life, someone she trusted enough to call when she was stuck. But that call, made in the early evening of October 10th, was the last confirmed contact anyone had with her. Jordan never made it home. Her stepmother, Mary Tucker, grew worried when she didn't hear from her. Days passed with no word, no texts, no sign of Jordan. For Mary, a sinking feeling set in. Something was wrong. Mary reported Jordan missing, but the process wasn't immediate. Jordan's history of running away and her struggles with drug use in the past led some to initially think she might have taken off on her own. Still, Mary knew this was different. Jordan had been working hard to get her life on track, and disappearing without a word didn't fit. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office took the report and began looking into her last known movements. They traced her to that broken-down car on Old Whitehorse Road and confirmed her call to Tyler Wilkins. When questioned, Tyler offered little clarity, claiming he didn't know where Jordan was. His vague answers raised red flags, but without more evidence, the trail was already starting to blur. The sheriff's office canvassed the area, talking to locals and checking Jordan's usual spots in Travelers Rest and Marietta. Her phone, her social media, her job at Hardee's, none offered immediate clues. The car was still there, abandoned, a silent marker of the moment Jordan vanished. For Mary and Jordan's loved ones, the days turned into weeks, each one heavier than the last. The delay in reporting Jordan missing, partly due to her past struggles with running away, meant critical time was lost. By the time deputies were fully mobilized, the trail was already cooling. Tyler Wilkins quickly became a person of interest. He admitted to getting Jordan's call that day, but insisted he didn't know what happened to her afterward. His story didn't sit right with investigators. Jordan had reached out to him specifically, and now she was gone. Yet, without physical evidence like a body, a crime scene, or even Jordan's phone, the case stalled. Deputies dug deeper, interviewing friends, family, and anyone who knew Jordan or Tyler. They learned the couple's relationship had been rocky, marked by arguments and breakups, but nothing concrete tied Tyler to a crime, at least not yet. The sheriff's office didn't give up. Over the years, they executed over 100 search warrants, scouring properties, woods, and areas around Old Whitehorse Road. They followed every lead, no matter how small, from tips called into Crime Stoppers to rumors in the community. Jordan's case gained attention beyond South Carolina in 2022 when it was featured on In Pursuit with John Walsh, a show dedicated to missing persons and fugitives. The episode brought Jordan's story to a national audience, with Mary Tucker pleading for anyone with information to come forward. She described Jordan's infectious laugh, her resilience, and her determination to build a better life. The spotlight helped, but no breakthroughs came.
Hey, good morning, Greenville. We just want to give you a little notice. You'll see several deputies and investigators behind me. It's Saturday morning, a little after 10 o'clock, and deputies will be canvassing the area here in Travelers Rest as well as Marietta. They may knock on your door and hand you one of these flyers. We're looking for information in reference to a missing person named Jordan Nebling. She was last seen in this area on October of 2020. We got reason to believe that we have a person of interest who is incarcerated. However, we have not found Jordan's herself or her body.
By late 2022, Jordan Nebling's disappearance had become a lingering mystery in Greenville County. For over 2 years, her stepmother, Mary Tucker, and the community had held on to hope, but the trail seemed cold. Then, in November 2022, a shocking development in a different case brought Jordan's name back into the spotlight. On November 9, 2022, Tyler Wilkins was arrested in connection with another tragic crime, the death of Clarissa Winchester in Pickens County. For those following Jordan's story, his arrest was a jolt. Could this be the break investigators had been waiting for? Tyler had been questioned early on about Jordan's disappearance, given that she'd called him for help when her car broke down on Old Whitehorse Road. His vague responses had never sat right, and now, with his name tied to another high-profile crime, questions about his past grew louder. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office didn't miss the connection. Detectives revisited Jordan's case, looking at Tyler with renewed scrutiny. The fact that he was now in custody for another crime raised the stakes. Could he know more about what happened to Jordan? Mary Tucker, who had never stopped advocating for her daughter, saw this as a glimmer of hope. She spoke to local news, urging authorities to dig deeper into Tyler's involvement. The community, too, buzzed with speculation, wondering if the answers to Jordan's fate were finally within reach. Investigators doubled down, re-examining old evidence and interviewing new witnesses. They focused on Tyler's movements around October 2020, trying to piece together what happened after he picked Jordan up. The Sawmill Roadhouse, where Tyler had been living, became a point of interest again. Had it held clues to Jordan's case all along? The sheriff's office was determined to find out, but the answers wouldn't come quickly. Tyler's arrest in the other case had reignited Jordan's story, but would it lead to the truth her family had been searching for? In April 2025, the mystery of Jordan Nebling's disappearance took a dramatic turn. Tyler Wilkins, now 24, and serving a 45-year sentence for the murder of Clarissa Winchester, made a stunning confession. He had stabbed Jordan to death in October 2020. The admission came while he was behind bars, already facing the consequences of his other crime. For Jordan's family, the Greenville County Sheriff's Office, and the community, this was the answer they'd been chasing for nearly 5 years. But it came with a heavy toll. Tyler's confession revealed chilling details. He admitted to meeting Jordan on October 10, 2020, after she called him for help when her car broke down. What should have been a simple pickup turned deadly. Tyler confessed to stabbing Jordan, though public reports didn't specify a motive. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office quickly charged him with murder and possession of a weapon during a violent crime. But one critical piece was missing: Jordan's body. Tyler didn't provide clear details about where he had hidden her remains, leaving investigators with a new challenge. The search for Jordan became a top priority, with deputies scouring areas tied to Tyler's past, including spots near Old Whitehorse Road. For Mary Tucker, Jordan's stepmother, the confession was both a breakthrough and a heartbreak. After years of pushing for answers, she finally knew what happened to her daughter. But the lack of Jordan's remains meant closure was still out of reach. Mary continued to speak out, sharing Jordan's story with news outlets and pleading for anyone with information to help find her. Sheriff Hobart Lewis vowed that the sheriff's office would not stop until Jordan was brought home, emphasizing their commitment to justice. The stories of Clarissa Winchester and Jordan Nebling are woven together by tragedy, loss, and a shared connection to a man whose actions left families shattered and a community searching for answers. As of July 2025, Jordan's remains have not been found. Thank you for joining me on Checkered Sky to explore these heartbreaking true crime stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.